Good evening. It's now 6:30, and I call to order the regular meeting of the Victoria City Council. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item on our agenda this evening is announcements. Our next workshop will be held Monday, February 24th at 5 p.m. During this workshop, there will be an update on transportation projects, and the council will interview applicants for both the Park and Rec Committee and the Senior Advisory Committees. Additionally, we'll conduct interviews for the Planning Commission on Monday, March 10th at 5:30 p.m. during our council workshop. Committee appointments for Planning Commission, Senior Advisory Committee, and our Park and Rec Committee will be considered and announced at the council meeting on Monday, March 10th. All meetings of the City Council are open to the public and held in the council chambers at City Hall unless otherwise noted. We encourage anyone wanting to attend our council meetings or workshops in person to contact our city clerk in advance. In other announcements, we invite you to submit nominations for our Community Builder Award, which recognizes individuals or groups who make a difference in our community. Each June, the city honors an individual, group, business, or organization that exemplifies outstanding volunteerism and a deep commitment to a brighter future for Victoria. Nominations are due by March 31st. For any questions or additional information about the program, please reach out to our Communications and Public Engagement Director, Kendra Grahl. That concludes the announcements for this evening, and our next order of business is to adopt the final agenda. Council, can I get a motion to adopt the final agenda?
Motion to adopt the final agenda.
We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is the open forum. This is the opportunity for anyone to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda and not an application form that will be coming to the council at a future date. Is there anyone, no one has registered in advance to speak, but is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the council on an item that's not on the agenda and not an application form coming to the council at a future date? Seeing no one, we'll move on to the next item, which is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are routine, administrative, and do not require deliberation, or are housekeeping items that are required by law. Consent agenda items are approved with one vote unless someone requests an item to be considered separately. Ms. Hardy, does staff wish to pull anything from the consent agenda this evening?
None from staff, Madam Mayor.
Is there anyone on the council wishing to pull something from the consent agenda this evening? Or a member of the audience who would like to pull something from the consent agenda for separate discussion and vote? Seeing none, may I have a motion for the consent agenda?
Motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now moving on to our regular agenda, the first item this evening, item 6.1, is a call for the business subsidy, public hearing, and inland development partners. Presenting this evening is our Community and Economic Development Director, Jen Brewington, and our Northland Financial Planner, Tommy Amdahl. Ms. Brewington, you're going to kick us off this evening, please.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Tonight I'll be giving a brief overview of a business subsidy application that we have received, and then I'm going to turn it over to Tammy for some more details. The city has received an application from Inland Development Partners requesting tax increment financing, TIF, assistance to support the development of a 162-unit apartment building. The proposed project will include 129 market rate units and 33 affordable units designed for households earning up to 50% of the area median income, known as AMI. To establish a TIF district for affordable housing, the City Council must first hold a public hearing to review the request. This hearing will allow the City Council to evaluate whether the proposed TIF district provides community benefits such as affordable housing and to address any public concerns. Following the hearing, the City Council will assess public input, review the project's alignment with community objectives, and determine whether to proceed with establishing the TIF district. The project is located approximately 4.1 acres. The Marsh Hollow development is situated to the northwest of the property. County Road 11, Victoria Drive, runs north-south along the eastern boundary of the subject property, providing access to Marsh Hollow and the surrounding areas within the Victoria Ridge development. I will now turn it over to Tammy Amdahl for an interview of TIF and the request from Inland Development Partners. When Tammy is finished, there will be an opportunity to talk with the developers who are in the audience tonight.
Very good, thank you. Ms. Amdahl, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Council. Tammy Umdahl with Northland Public Finance. I'm going to speak to TIF in general. I know for some on the council, it's been a while, or maybe the first time that you're considering a tax increment financing district. And note tonight, the resolution is the start of the process. It's calling for the public hearing. So tonight, I'm not here to present on the proposed terms for assistance that are specific. Those details will come over the next several weeks. And there's a statutory process that first must be followed. Tax increment financing, there's a bunch of bullet points. I'll let you read those. But in general, tax increment financing is a public finance tool. It is the main public finance tool that allows a city or an authority that's established by the city to capture the increase in local property taxes to assist that development, a development that you find ultimately when you would conclude the process that that proposed project, whatever that may be specific to a TIF district, would not occur but for that assistance. So it's a very powerful tool because it allows you to capture not only the city property tax, but the county, the school district, and the other special taxing jurisdictions. It does not allow when there is commercial property that is subject to state property tax, which is not the case with the inland application because that is for housing, but commercial property that is not housing pays state property taxes. TIF under Minnesota law cannot be captured for that purpose, and the school referendum tax cannot be captured. So when this project comes before you and you see more details on the increment, just note that the school district would enjoy immediate benefit from that increase related to the school referendum taxes. If you can go to the next slide. So the purpose of tax increment financing is to stimulate development where it would not otherwise occur. And there's some statutory language when you get to that point after the public hearing is held, where you make that finding that but for this assistance that the project as proposed would not occur in the reasonably foreseeable future. So it's a very prescribed process that you go through before. I would note that even though the city has a business subsidy policy that this falls under state law, housing does not fall under a business subsidy. So really the purpose of providing tax increment financing to housing is to assist with that affordable housing development. In this case, it's a market rate project with an affordable component that would be in compliance with the requirements of the TIF law. So some background on that. If you can go to the next slide, to the examples of types of TIF district on slide 6. I'll let her get there. So tonight, and sticking with the kind of a TIF 101, just note there are different types of tax increment financing districts under state law. The most common types are listed there. Redevelopment district. With the redevelopment district, not applicable to this application, it's really on land that has buildings, and those buildings are found to be substandard, as well as meeting certain coverage tests. Redevelopment districts have a very long term, up to 26 years. Renewal and renovation districts are similar to redevelopment districts, but the bar is not as high with respect to the findings. Economic development districts, for the most part, that refers to industrial development, warehousing, distribution. Not relevant here, but that is a type of TIF district that is available to cities. The last one, housing district, which state law allows for a term of 26 years to capture the increment, that is relevant to this application that you received. The type of TIF district it would qualify for is a housing district. If you can go to the next slide.
Tammy, just to confirm, that is up to 26 years. It doesn't mean that, that's just the maximum, right?
That is absolutely correct. That's true with those other type of districts that I had listed, that state law allows up to that. Really, the amount of years depends on the amount of assistance that is needed for the project to be feasible. So under no case can it exceed, in a case of a housing district, 26 years, but there are examples where it can be less than the 26 years, depending on the facts for the project.
Right. Yep.
So a housing TIF district on slide 7, just checking in there, that is the type of TIF district which would be applicable to this application. With respect to the city's numbering, this would be TIF District 10. So TIF districts are established within boundaries of development districts. In the case of Victoria, the City Council has established Municipal Development District number 1, and that is coterminous with the boundaries of the city. So there will be a modification to the development district because the proposed area of this development was subject to annexation, so the boundaries of the development district will change as a result of that. It's just the way that state law works, and when pooling is applicable, that development district boundaries mean something. In this case, the assistance in the project will be geographically specific to where the housing project will be. The TIF district, the developer has made application. I have reviewed it. I am not here to present terms tonight, but I would note that preliminarily that this would be proposed to be a 15-year district. That could change before it is brought the final agreement before the council. But Mayor, in line with your question that you asked of me, based upon preliminary review and discussions with the developer, it looks like this may be limited. In that case, the TIF district would be established with a 15-year maximum, and then it would end after the developer is repaid or the 15-year term is reached, whichever occurs first. And we will get into more of those details at the public hearing when that resolution of approval is before you. The third bullet point here, revenue derived from a housing district must be used solely to finance the cost of the housing project. So you can't say, well, if we only give X to the developer in this district, could we use Y to assist with other development in the city or parking or other things? That is not allowable with the housing district. It has to be used to provide for those affordable housing units that are proposed. If you can go to the next slide, slide 8. With a housing district and your ability and authority to establish it, that the city must require that the developer meet certain income requirements. And the state law is written as such for rental housing projects that either 40% of the units must be leased to persons with income at 60% of the area-wide median income, or 20% of the units rented to families with incomes at or below 50%. For this project in the application, the developer is proposing 20% of the units at 50% of AMI. The way the TIF law works and the financing that is proposed for this project, there's not rent restrictions, there are restrictions on income, and that the developer over the life of the district will have to certify to the city that they in fact have income qualified a minimum number of units pursuant to the requirements of state law and what will be pursuant to the requirements of the development agreement that will be before them.
So can I ask a question? So the numbers you have there, so it's those two out, right? There's no, we're gonna up it by 2, right? It's the 40% at 60 or 20 at 50.
That is correct, and they're minimums. So for example, the city could say, well, we would be comfortable if there were 10% of the units at 50% AMI. The city, pursuant to your development agreement, could require more than what state law requires, but you could not require less than what is required or in statute.
Thank you.
Tammy, can you also tell us what 50% of AMI is? Do you know that number?
So I think, and I have this in that memo, I think it's at, Mayor, I don't even want to, I was about ready to say a number. Let me get that number to staff to share with you so I quote the correct number.
Thank you.
Jen, if you could make note to have me follow up that. Thank you. So on analysis for TIF assistance on slide 9. So the analysis involves determining how much TIF is needed for the project. Questions asked and answered that must be answered. Is the TIF assistance necessary? This isn't to increase returns to the developer. This is to provide for affordable housing that otherwise would not occur. If there is a need for it, how much assistance is needed? The preliminary analysis suggests the 15-year term, and I'll get into some dollar amounts in a moment. And keep in mind, I'm not here tonight to present on that development agreement, but we thought it would be helpful to give you some preliminary indication. In this case, the developer in their applications and discussions It has moved quickly, meaning they've been very forthcoming with information, so we're further along in having some of this to share at a very early point, which is not always the case when you're calling for the public hearing. So I'm going to jump to, or excuse me, the objectives. Provide the minimum assistance for project feasibility. I like to use the term win-win. What is the amount of assistance needed in order for the city to accomplish its goals and objective, and for the developer to have a successful project? Mitigating risk to the city, as proposed and requested from the developer, this would be entirely pay-go. The city would not be providing any funds up front. The pledge would be the increment that is available. If the increment is less than what is projected at time establishment of the district, the city would only provide up to that amount. And if it's more, it means the developer would be reimbursed sooner for those eligible costs than what was projected. This would not be a general obligation of the city, meaning you're not putting the full faith and credit pledge behind that assistance. Is solely will be payable from the tax increment on a pay-go basis, which mitigates the risk to the city. On slide 10, preliminary TIF assumptions for TIF District 1-10, emphasizing the preliminary again. The estimated average annual tax increment from the project is approximately $380,000, the annual over the life of the district. The developer would receive 90% of the increment for reimbursement of up to $3 million of housing development costs on a pay-go basis with interest based on a maximum term of 15 years. Project costs would entirely be financed by the developer. The developer would be reimbursed semi-annually for project costs as TIF revenue is generated over time. The reason it's semi-annually is because taxes are paid semi-annually. The TIF revenue note issued to the developer, as noted, would be payable solely from the tax increment generated, which varies. We don't know what future tax rates will be. We don't know what future assessed value will be each year over that 15-year period. So the actual increment will vary, but what we do know is it would not exceed the agreed to amount at the front. City would use up to 10% of the increment to reimburse administration costs. And can you go to the next slide? I'm going to show you a snapshot here. And this is just a snapshot of ultimately what will be in what's called a tax increment financing plan. But just to give you a big picture, so for the total life of the district, about 5.7, life of the district here is 15 years, 5.7 million of increment generated. To give some room for potential, while the city has cash on hand before payments are made, interest and investment earnings of 50,000, that's a placeholder amount. But what I want to draw your attention to, how TIF would be used, it would be used to reimburse land acquisition costs of approximately 2.2 million and site improvement and preparation costs that the developer would finance in addition to the land acquisition of 1.2. The administrative cost is not a windfall to the city. That's only to reimburse actual costs. City will not incur, I can't imagine, $572,000 of costs. What the city does not use of that for admin costs would be excess increment. It is returned to the county at the end of the district for redistribution to the city, the county, and the school district. But those numbers are estimate, depends on actual cost. There's also an interest expense component because you are pay on a pay-go basis, means as they pay their property taxes twice a year, they get reimbursed from that. That's payable with interest. That is very common practice in assisting private development. And the reason for the interest payment from the increment to the developer is the city is not providing any assistance up front. They have to finance that cost of the land acquisition and the site improvements. So the present value is the reimbursement of that site improvement cost. So again, this is early. You will see this again with final numbers when we're at the hearing and you're considering approval of the development agreement. I'm going to turn the presentation back to Jen to talk about the timeline, and then Mayor Council, I'd be happy to come back if there's questions.
Thank you, Ms. Amdahl. Ms. Brewington, please.
All right, well, excuse me, a timeline has been established for the TIF district and the approval of the plan. So after this evening, March 18th, the county commissioners will be notified of the hearing. On March 28th, the county and school district are notified of the hearing and receive a copy of the draft plan. On April 1st, the Planning Commission reviews the draft plan and adopts the resolution of findings for its conformity to the general development plans of the city. Then that hearing notice is published in the newspaper on April 17th. And then finally, on April 28th, a public hearing is held and a resolution is adopted to establish the TIF district along with the approval of the Development Assistance Agreement. So with that, Mayor and council members, I have a sample motion on the screen here. And like Tammy mentioned, the developers are also here in the audience for questions.
Very good, thank you. Council, questions, comments, discussion?
I don't think I have any questions.
We have the developers in the audience. If you would like to approach the podium and share anything with us that you would like us to know, please do so.
Mayor, members of the council. My name is Tom Shaver. I'm a managing partner at Inland Development Partners. So we're pleased to be in front of you today with the project, working closely with Tammy and staff. They were very good. I happen to chair our Housing Redevelopment Authority for my community for the past 20 years, and I can bring Tammy up to give the TIF 101. She did a very good job, and she does a wonderful job with that. So I'm here to address any questions. You've seen us before relative to our proposed project, its size, scope, and the things that we're trying to do. Schedule, working with Jen and staff here, working through the schedule. It can move fairly quickly. We're moving with speed on it. So I'm here to address any questions you have over our project associated with the TIF component of it at this time. And
I do have a question for you, Mr. Schaefer. Affordable housing is a big buzzword all around the state of Minnesota. Everybody's looking for it. Everybody's trying to find some. Is this TIF tool that we are looking to be providing you, will that be enough to allow you to provide the number of units that you're proposing? Or are you seeking additional support from other, like are there any state resources out there, federal resources that can help on this project?
there are, but not for kind of this combined market rate, because we're facing the same thing with our community and trying to develop in this day and time, given the cost and affordability of new construction. Using your tool, TIF as the tool, and the areas that we're bringing it down to 50% AMI, which you've heard explanation. I do have a chart that I'm going to share with Tammy, so she might be able to come up and address your question, Mayor, relative to what AMI means relative to different household size. But what that does provide us is 20% of the units within this project to remain affordable through the duration of the district. And it's a very powerful tool that can be used. Absent of that, there are state opportunities, LIHTC credits. You may have heard of these, but they're very competitive and hard to get. The pool of LIHTC dollars is not significant, and the applications are significant. And so those pools get drained fairly quickly. There's no federal programs that I'm aware of to support what we're all trying to do within our communities with more affordable housing within our new developments, or even for that matter, our naturally occurring, and maintaining the naturally occurring affordable within our communities as well.
Very good. I had another question and I lost it. Yeah.
That's okay.
I hate when that happens.
No,
I know what I was going to say. What's the makeup of the affordable units? Are they just a mix of 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom? What are you proposing for that?
they're going to be a mix of all product types. So we've got it broken down, and I can in plan right now. We've got of the 33 units that are being proposed, 4 will be alcove units, which are smaller, kind of 1-bedroom units. 14 units are going to be 1-bedroom, and then 15 units are 2-bedroom. We're not building any 3-bedroom projects in this particular project, given the housing that's going to be surrounding us to support those 3-bedroom families.
Okay, thank you. All right, council, other questions for the developer? Ms. Amdahl?
I guess I have a couple questions. Are these units, do they look any different than the market rate units? Are they exactly the same? All right, some of these questions I have are for public record and just for the public to hear and understand, and I'm not sure if this should go more to you, Tammy, but 10% administration fee on a TIF district is the maximum that a city can charge, correct?
Mayor, council member, so the 10% is not charged to the developer. The city can use up to 10% of the TIF that's collected from the county to reimburse or pay for administration costs. In this case, and it's actual administration costs, so it can't be used to go into the general fund for other purposes. It's given the amount, it's highly unlikely that the city would use that roughly $500,000 for admin costs. So to answer your question, yes, it is limited, but it is not a charge to the developer. It's just a maximum that the city can use of the increment that it receives from the county.
That we get and withhold and then don't pay back, but then we will have to pay it back at the end of the TIF duration.
And that will be up to the city and the finance director recommending to you that you can return it sooner as you go, but are not required to. You just can't exceed that 10%.
Probably should have asked this before, but this development, I mean, it's going to happen without the TIF. We just wouldn't have an affordable housing component of the development. Is that correct?
So the developer would have to answer that, but the developer has already attested that the affordable units would not happen without the TIF assistance. So I can let them, if you'd like them to come back to speak to the market rate.
Councilmember Pedersen, is there anything else for Tammy?
I think I'm good with that, but thank you. I appreciate it.
You're
All right,
welcome.
thank you. Mr. Schaefer, if you approach the podium, I'm curious about that question too. But for the, will the project go forward with or without the TIF, just on an affordable component? Without the affordable component, I should say.
Madam Mayor, the reality is no. TIF is going to be required regardless, and the affordability component does go to offset some of the costs relative to hitting a minimum yield threshold that we've been sharing through pro forma with staff and with your fiscal consultant.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right. Councilmember Pedersen, does that answer all your questions?
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is the proper time, but what if it doesn't work out, or is there a limitation to selling the actual development once it's been built? Let's say it's put up and 3 years from now, there's 50% residency, 10% of it is affordable housing. Basically have vacancies because there isn't enough out here, have problems paying the property taxes. What happens then?
That would be a failed project, obviously, for a whole host of reasons. We're putting up relative to our debt and financing package significant equity as well. So the other thing, the equity would be pushed out first, and so we would be, our debt provider would then take over the project and secure it with financing. We're not assuming that to happen. That's not something that has happened on any of our projects, to date. It's something that we play for that downside risk, though, and we've mitigated to a point where we feel very comfortable with growth in the community that will be successful. So it's a great question. It's one of those that developers wake up in the middle of the night sweating sometimes.
Well, I wake up sweating just thinking about the community. We have got this giant complex down here with nobody living in it but rabbits and possums, and I don't want to see that happen. So I'm assuming you've done your due diligence, but it's a question I just would like to ask.
Quite frankly, that's one of the areas that we focus a majority of our attention before we're even here before you tonight is this market feasibility. We've got an in-depth market study looking at the various competition. Through our team, we've got over 2,000 units under management. We've built several thousands of units as well. And so I say that to try to give you some comfort that we don't come into these meetings without doing significant due diligence beforehand. It's
Okay,
not a trust
thank
me, but it's our money that is at risk. So I appreciate your concerns, and it does keep us up at night sometimes.
Understood. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other questions, comments from council? All right, seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
Motion for approval of the resolution calling for a public hearing on modification of the development program for Development District Number 1 and a tax increment financing plan for tax increment financing district number 1-10.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Let's give that to Councilmember Pedersen. We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda, item 6.2, is our 2024 year-end strategic plan update. Presenting that item this evening is Assistant City Manager Alyssa Nelson. Ms. Nelson, welcome.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me. Tonight, we are going to be doing our year-end strategic plan report for the 2024 year. For those new and for those folks at home that are watching, just as a recap, Council went through a very long workshop discussion in 2021, and as part of that discussion, they adopted 8 different strategic priorities, which include infrastructure and transportation, economic vitality, housing and community character, service excellence, engagement and communication, public safety, recreation and culture, and then environmental sustainability. And within those 8 priorities, there was also 123 initiatives or projects that were adopted as part of the strategic plan that council and staff of the city overall worked together on to hopefully finish within that 3-year time frame. Now, as you see, this strategic plan is more than 3 years. At the end of 2023, council made a decision to extend the strategic plan an additional year as the priorities and initiatives still met the needs of the city at the time. So now we're looking at the end of the 4th year and the completion end of the strategic plan. So tonight what we'll do is just do a brief recap of how we met those goals, and then what we'll do is we pulled out a few different highlights, a few different project highlights that were done in the last year, and we just want to share that with you as well as the community. I do note that all 123 initiative reporting is in the agenda report for tonight. And then after this presentation, we will be taking this information, making it into a formalized reporting document, which will then be posted on the website. So with that, out of the 123 initiatives, at the end of the strategic plan report, we have completed 114 of them, so that's 93%, so it's still an A. The 9 that were not completed were either not funded or not budgeted for strategically, or they happen to be currently in progress. An example of one that happens to be in progress is placemaking opportunities with downtown and downtown west as we look at phase 1 and phase 2 of that project. So moving into some of our highlights, the first one we have for you is under the infrastructure and transportation umbrella. We're highlighting the connectivity of our lift stations to fiber. In 2024, we saw a great achievement in bolstering the reliability and security of our communication systems between our critical infrastructure sections. Previously, what we had, and it's a standard radio connectivity, however, that system provided challenges due to the vulnerability that weather interference played into that and sometimes caused occurrences of false alarms. So what we ended up doing is leveraging ARPA dollars to light dark fiber connections that were already in the ground. They were installed in 2016, 17, 18, and 19. However, at that time, there was not funding to purchase the equipment and the staff time to actually light them up for that actual connectivity. So leveraging those ARPA dollars, we were able to provide the equipment to light those, and now there is a direct connection between those specific sites and the water treatment plant. Now, for areas where fiber connectivity isn't available yet, we did explore alternative options and install alternatives to our radio system, and that includes cellular as well as point-to-point, providing, again, a more secure, more reliable connectivity between things like our lift stations and our booster stations to our water treatment plant. And then additionally, the city's participation in Carver County's CarverLink program with MetroNet will help us expand our fiber connections throughout our city and throughout our city facilities as MetroNet continues their project of installing fiber throughout the city. So, our next highlight is economic vitality, and our initiative we're highlighting here is development of our downtown west. As you know, this has been a project years in the making, over 15 years that the city has held on to this site, and just within these last couple of weeks, we've actually broke ground on the site, so that's been a pretty exciting update. Specifically in 2024, Council, you issued a request for a proposal, an RFP, to look at the development of phases 2 and 3 of this site. And then even at last meeting, Council, you selected Victoria DT LLC, previously known as Monarch Development, to help guide you through that development process and guide the visioning of what Downtown West is going to look like for phase 2 and phase 3. And you can't forget, obviously, phase 1. We just had our successful groundbreaking ceremony a couple of weeks ago, which features a 145-unit market rate apartment building that will be right at the cornerstone of our downtown area in the southeastern corner. Next, we are highlighting public safety, specifically exploring future policing services. We're pleased to introduce our first ever community safety officer, CSO Rachel Dorff. Following extensive conversations at the council level, the city partnered with Carver County Sheriff's Office to bring this very important public safety position to our community, and Rachel started with us in April of this last year, 2024. As a CSO, Rachel plays a pivotal role in enhancing our public safety in our community. She assists with crime prevention, she maintains a visible presence in our community, and most importantly, she fosters a positive relationship between law enforcement and community members. Specifically, what you might see her around town getting into is performing animal control, both domestic and wildlife, assisting with traffic control, responding to non-emergency calls, educating members of our community on statutes as well as ordinances, and then enforcing our city ordinances. And then lastly, attending community engagement events, and you can see her as well as Councilmember Wright, you're spotlighted on the screen, where she attended our Night to Night event in this last year. And then our last highlight for you is under environmental sustainability, which is exploring ways to improve water treatment plant efficiency. We do this in a number of ways. Obviously, there's ways to maintain our equipment and our facility better, but also there's an educational practice that we try and do. This last year, we introduced our water drop educational program, so you might have saw us at different city events or community events, such as Classic Cars with our big jugs of water, trying to educate the public on how the water from the ground gets to the water in their faucets in their homes. And then in addition, this last year, we also worked with Carver County to provide a program that encourages homeowners to be more efficient with their irrigation and their sprinkler system. And this program is more or less a rebate program through Carver County, where residents can purchase a smart irrigation controller that can help save them up to 50% on outdoor water usage. This specific controller can connect to your smartphone. It can link to weather, local weather, so it won't actually turn on in the rain. And you can customize the schedule for individual yards as well. And this is in addition to the many other rebates that the city offers when it comes to water efficiency. We have a grant through the state of Minnesota, so if people are interested, they can get a rebate for smart dishwashers, clothes washers, toilets, faucets, shower heads, such and such. And if anyone is interested in those type of programs, we have all the information on our city's website. The applications are on there as well. You can also call the city's main number, and someone will be gladly to help walk you through the process. Now, that's Mayor and Council. That's just a brief update, but again, we do have the complete report on the 123 initiatives on the city's website, and again, or it will be on the city's website, but it's also currently in the agenda packet. But with that, I will pause here and see if you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nelson. This has been a years-long project, and I need to commend the staff on their good hard work on this. 43 initiatives is not a small number, and they have managed that very well and done a beautiful job on that. So my kudos to the staff on all of that. Council, questions, comments on this?
Great job, over 90%.
Yeah.
Excellent.
We like an A.
Completion.
To get through the next 10% with this extension, what could we do to make it easier for you?
You know, we actually did do the extension, so the extension was for 2024 year, but I do believe we're gonna start looking at the next upcoming strategic plan for 2025, and I anticipate a lot of those 9 will continue into that next 3 years of strategic plan.
Fair enough.
Very good. All right. Anything else from council? All right. I don't think, we don't need to take any action on this item. This was informational only, so thank you very much, Ms. Nelson, for that. And please share our gratitude with the rest of the team. We appreciate that. So with that, council, there are no more items on our regular agenda this evening, so let's move on to reports and emerging issues. Attorney Vos, you're up first.
Mayor, Council, nothing particular, but just give me 1 minute. You thank the staff, Mayor, for the good work on the strategic plan update. I want to thank you for staying on that, keeping your staff on that. You know, I've got 8 cities where I sit here and give legal advice. None of the cities I work with are as intentional about keeping up on their plan and reporting on their plan. It's really fun, frankly, for me to see the things that the little tiny piece of work that I get to put into things and the good result at the end of it. So I appreciate that. And then I would just say about in the plan, Alyssa rightly pointed out that one of the things that your staff's going to work, frankly, really hard on, let's be honest, is this code update project, which I'm probably the only person that's excited about that. Because lawyers who get excited about code updates, it's an arduous process though. So, and that's been kicked off, and I've gotten to have a few touches on that, and I appreciate the work that staff is doing on that. It's just not an easy job. And this last thing, I don't want to, I shouldn't get to steal the thunder, but I'm excited about a project that may bring some additional telecom connectivity to your community that you might have heard a little bit about, and your community will hear more about, and I think that's exciting for any community and great for yours. So appreciate being able to get a little insight into all the work that your staff is doing.
Yeah. Well, thank you. We think we do a great job, but it's always nice when somebody who's got some experience with other
You really
communities
do.
agree.
Yeah, it's self-serving of me to say to you that, but it's true. I mean, it's just, you're very intentional about it, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. All right. Ms. Hardy, anything from staff?
Yes, Mayor, there's actually 2 things. One from me, and then I'll pass it over to our city clerk to talk about the artwork. But just wanted to note, and I know you all know, but we wanted to make sure that all of our community members also know that we went through our bond rating call, which is required when we issue bonds. Those bonds are going to be used to fund the construction of our new fire station. And so there's a process that we need to go through that includes writing, telling our story about why we need the financing and how we're going to support that. And then we sit through a panel of interviews with the credit rating agency. And just like a normal interview, you go through and answer a bunch of questions related to the finances. And so that process has been complete, and we have our AAA bond rating reaffirmed. So very proud of that. That's really great news for all of us. What that means for the general public is that it's savings to you. So we get the most, when we go out to issue and sell those bonds, we will get the most competitive, most competition and most competitive rates, and that translates into direct savings over for interest over the course of the bonding. So congratulations. Thank you for your financial policies and strong financial management. That is key as to why this rating was reaffirmed. So congratulations to you all.
And back at you with the staff. I know Ms. Pollock, our finance manager, works very hard on that, along with the rest of the staff. So thank you very much on that. Ms. Edisfold, you're up next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. I wanted to point out we have our continued partnership with the talented Deb Zeller, and this exhibit features, it's called In the Footsteps of the Modern Masters, and this collection focuses on watercolors. They've been displayed in council chambers since February 3rd, and welcome residents to come and explore our artwork. And we're open, it's available in normal business hours, 8 to 4:30, Monday through Friday.
Thank you. beautiful pictures. Again, thanks to Deb Zeller and her studio for the beautiful artwork that changes over every so often here in the city council chambers. Anything from the council this evening? Announcements, reports?
None for me, Mayor.
All right, seeing none, there are no more items to come before the body this evening, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
We have a motion. How about a second?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We stand adjourned.